February the 27th, 2023. Guys, we're almost made it into March, and of course we're getting some rough spring weather. Thoughts and prayers go out to you folks in Oklahoma. That tornado came through there, and there's thousands of people without power tonight in that area, and there's floods. California, New York, you're going to get your first real snow of the year. But again, everyone be careful. Regardless, limit your travel in the bad weather and the floods and the snow. But just again, I'm not sure how many folks in that. I think it was close to Norman, Oklahoma. I just saw a little bit of it, and I saw an aerial video of, I think it was a helicopter going over a large neighborhood. A lot of roofs were ripped off. I think this happened during the night last night, the way it looked. But again, we're thinking about you guys. Now, I want to go into Revelation chapter 12. I'm not sure I'm going to go past that tonight. It's not a long one, but there's a good bit to talk about. And it has to do with the simplifying of one of the most talked about chapters in Revelation. Again, Revelation 12:1. It's talking about the woman and the dragon, and then Satan thrown down to earth with his angels. Now, again, I'm not a preacher. I have studied a long time, and I've, especially doing these videos, I like to ask for help from above, to kind of open my eyes a little further so that I can maybe help other people and help myself, because if he opens my eyes to where I can understand it, that helps me. And then if I try to talk about it in a video like this, maybe it makes more sense, if you know what I mean. The last thing I want to do is try to get too far away from the message, because I am an imperfect man. But again, I think in the simplicity that this was taught, and if you'll throw out what you've been taught and just go back into the beginning of the book of Revelation, Christ was talking to the churches. 7 churches, they each had 7 stars, 7 angels or messengers over these churches protecting them. And we're going to see that as well here, except instead of 7 churches, we're going to see 12 tribes. It's what I'm thinking that we're talking about here. So, Revelation 12:1, there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun. Now, this is what's called the eSword. It's a free link. You can go to esword.net, and we have an automatic link on our website, BPearthWatch.com. Scroll down to the right, you'll see a blue box, and it says eSword, free download. Now, we are using it, and it's a very wonderful tool. It's dictionaries, different Bibles, different things like that. I prefer the King James because even though it has been interpreted, it is one of the closer English versions that we have to the truth. Now in 12:1, it says, there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Now who would that be? Who had 7 stars again? It was the 7 churches in the beginning of Revelation. Now we have 12 stars, 12 angels, 12 messengers, and they're the 12 tribes. Let's keep it simple. This woman, if you click on KJV Plus here and come to woman, you'll see probably from the base of G means it's in the Greek New Testament, a woman, specifically a wife. Who is the bride? We're talking about the bride. We're talking about the Son, not the Son of God here, but the Son clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And that 12 stars, guys, goes on to be the 144,000 out of the 12 tribes. But then there's multitudes that have also given their life for Christ. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth and pain to be delivered. Think of it this way. Remember leading up to the birth of Christ in the New Testament, they were waiting on a Savior. The tribes had been handed over to slavery. They had to move out of the territory 10 of them crossed the Caucasus Mountains, and many of them made it here, and that's why they're called Caucasians. But again, she being with child, cry, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. Why would it be a pain? You know that the tribes are crying out, the people that are being distressed are crying out for a Savior, for the Messiah. But at the same time, they know in their prophecy what? That he will be crucified. And so there would be great pain in knowing that. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads, 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. Now we know this is Satan. It tells you that as you read through here. And these 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns, Satan is a fallen angel. Think of the 7 crowns, the 7 heads, to simplify it, is that the Roman Greek gods, going back to the Sumerian gods, they have a long life, and they just come back in a different name, a different situation, from Apollyon to Abaddon to Zeus, name it. That's just simplifying it, and so we don't get hung up on it. But and his tail drew a third part of the stars of heaven. We know that's Satan. And the stars, again, not physical stars, these are messengers. In this case, these stars fought on Satan's side, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. That's when he gets back. And her child was caught up to God and to his throne. He was crucified. And the woman fled into the wilderness where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her 1,260 days. In normal days, that would be 3.5 years. But sometimes you're dealing with a different time here. You know, one day with the Lord is 1,000 years to man. So, again, we're seeing this, and what we're talking about again, who is the woman? It's the 12 tribes. It is the people that believe in the Messiah and that believe that Yahweh is the Creator. Now, let's move on. And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. That's the one up at the top. And the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. We know it's Satan. We know it's his fallen angels that were cast out with him. But what has he done? Deceiveth the whole world. Who is the locust army? We talked about last night in this book. The preachers, the lying, false doctrine, the false everything. You're going to be talking about Antichrist, pretending to be Christ. The false preachers, the false churches. We know that. That's what we're talking about. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, this is where it's getting important. Now has come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accused them before our God day and night. Satan went back and forth. He couldn't stand it. How did this creation get created? Why were the 12 tribes protected by God? He couldn't take that. He had to complain, go back and forth. Well, this one did this and this one did that. God told him, go to Job and we'll see how it works out for you. And Satan put everything he could on Job, but nothing is allowed unless God does it. And Job overcame. He won that match that between him and these people that were being sent by Satan, always talking down to him. But that's what God told him. Go see Job. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb. Now here goes the rapture theory out the window, and probably lose a lot of subscribers right now, but the word is more important than that to me. Because, guys, I've said it for 30 years, 10 or 12 years here on YouTube, but there is no rapture as you think of it. Why? We'll continue, but again, please write this down if you're still stuck on that, because some false preacher behind a pew started talking to you and telling you this is the easy way out. You don't need to understand the book of Revelation. Forget that. That's too confusing. It's full of symbology of dragons and demons and multi-headed serpents, and you can't understand that. It's not meant for you. You just know that you're going to be raptured out of here before this happens. And you know what? That's the false preacher. That's what all of this is about. The Antichrist coming before Jesus, the entire chapter, and who overcomes it, almost the entire book. Again, write this down if you don't know it. Mark 13, Luke 21, and Matthew 24. Christ tells them 3 times for emphasis, the same group, that in those days after the tribulation, they shall see the sign of the Son of Man coming. Then comes the wrath of God. But you know, if you think about it, remember, I guess, 20, 30 years ago, the bracelet came out or something that said, what would Jesus do? He sure didn't preach about the rapture and you being floated out like butterflies. He came as an example. And what happened to him? He was crucified for speaking the truth. They could not stand it. It's like the politicians now that censor you. The truth cuts them to the core. Now, again, this is the important part where we're going to, as we roll into 18 up through chapter 20 and 21, through that part, that you must understand what we're dealing with. And again, it's very simple. We're still dealing with the same subject matter. Beginning, Christ kind of scolding the churches, pointing that out, what they were doing wrong, and then go into John, and we start talking about other things. All of it's been with the locust army, all of that. That's the preachers, the false preachers. You'll know them by their fruit. You'll know them if you understand that it tells you in the Old Testament, they will cast their gold and silver out into the street, because it was the stumbling block of their iniquity. Someone probably will put that verse in, and I'd appreciate it. And that's what they teach and preach. Not the true word. Therefore, let me go back to 11. And they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb, and by the word of their testimony, and they loved not their lives unto what? Unto death. Unto death. Overcame him how? By the blood of the Lamb. What was the blood of the Lamb? The physical extreme sacrifice to show the testimony that you will not bow to the Antichrist. Christ didn't. He doesn't expect you to, but he's not going to float you out. That first train coming, guys, that you think you want to jump on. Who comes first? The Antichrist. So that's the hell-bound train. Jump on it if you want to, but you better read and you better pay attention, because the first one jumping are going to be just like the first ones that jumped in line to go get the you-know-what, not thinking, not using that brain. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and you that dwell in them. Who now are in the heavens? I'm not saying the end paradise after the 1,000 years. I'm talking about who is in the heavens. It's the people that lost their lives unto death. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and you that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea. For the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. So, there's where we go into the wrath of God, because the ones that overcame, they're up and out of here. Not a rapture. They went through tribulation. Guys, please don't take it in a negative form, because you're closing your eyes and you're going to miss a great opportunity to stand before your family, and your friends as a Christian warrior when this time comes? Wouldn't you stand up for your family if a burglar was trying to come in? So you need to show that in these times. But again, the people that gave their life from Christ, they're gone. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, again, you that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth that are still here, for the wrath of God. The tribulation's over. Make it that far. Don't give up and go with the Antichrist and go sit on his pew and let him pat you on the head while you feed him money and give you no teaching, such you don't need to read this book. Wait till the end and you'll see that you need to read it. And when the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. Who are the 12 stars? It was 12 angels assigned to the 12 tribes. In my opinion, simply from reading what the 7 stars assigned to the 7 churches were in the first book of this Bible. And who has he persecuted since then? Christians, every nation. Look at this nation. Look at Ukraine, persecuting Christians. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, and she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time and times and a half a time from the face of the serpent. Again, we're getting into time. Man's time and God's time is different. And the serpent cast out his mouth of water as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. Well, you know it's not Noah's flood. We're way past that. What is it? It's the flood of lies by the locust army. After the 12 tribes, after the people that have been spread across this planet and persecuted for it. That's what we're dealing with here. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. Those lies. And the dragon was wroth with the woman. How did that happen? Because these 12 tribes were preaching the truth, and he could not stand it. And the dragon was wroth with who? The 12 stars, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, us, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. What are you listening to right now? Who told John to write this down? It was Jesus Christ. Still, guys, we have not went out of the simplistic boundary of what we've talked about from the chapter 1. Why? Because we need to take all of that mystery out. We won't have the final mystery until those books are open and God says we have it. But right now he's trying to open hearts and minds to make you realize this is not some great Babylonian dragons floating around coming up out of the sea and it's too hard to understand. No, it's just that same battle that's been going on through the entire Bible since the birth of of Abel and Cain, A good side and a bad side. That's all we're dealing with here, put in symbology, like I said last night, because it's above the heads of the scribes and the Pharisees that love to change words in our Bible. The scribes, they would write stuff down. You know, the scribes became scribes, but they started out, and they were called Kenites. They just worked for the church. They worked their way in, sweeping floors, bookkeeping, whatever it was. And that after the 400 years of captivity, instead of the Levitical priesthood being in charge, it was the Kenite priest now. The Kenites, sons of Cain. If you don't understand the beginning in the book of Genesis, then we'll have to get back into that after we get through Revelation. But it's very important to know who the serpent seed is and that he's here. Christ told these scribes and Pharisees as they tried to trick him about who's this coin belong to. Anything they could think of. Come in with a question. How do you feel? This way, or do you feel that way? Guys, do you realize that happens in the comments anytime you do a video like this, and it's the same persecution a lot of times? And the only thing you can say is, what do you think? You take the words in, you digest that little book. If it gets bitter in your belly, then you got a problem. You may need to read it again and realize who wins this battle. Very simple, right? Now, I'm not going to go into 13 tonight. I'm not going to read it. Chapter 12 needs to be absorbed, because you'll realize since chapter 1, we're still in the same battle from the beginning of Genesis up until now, and we're still there. How are you going to overcome it? By the blood of Christ. But it's talking about the first beast, the second beast, going down through here. And it's basically going to be just that simple once you realize that it's been going on forever, and the different people and the different entities involved with this, the false teachers, the Antichrist, all of that, the false prophets. It's not hard to do, and it, regardless if it all sinks in or not, we know what we're talking about here. You know, it's a battle between Christ and his people against Satan and his people. In this case, the locust army. That's not a military. They're talking about the 200,000, right? 2 million people. That's the spread of the locust army of preachers. And remember, they just have that breastplate of iron. When the true Levitical priests had a breastplate with 12 jewels representing what? The 12 tribes and the crown of that woman in heaven, the wife. And that's why they talk about the bride of Christ. It's simple, guys. Don't let anybody tell you it's not. And I don't mind being corrected in the comments, because I'll be the first to admit I don't know all the answers, but I do like to share what I think I see in this, because why did the Bible suddenly get mystical in the last book? Because God did not want it changed. He wanted it to be there, whether it confused you or not, until that light bulb was turned on. And that way, again, these false priests and preachers, it kind of blows right over their head. No eyes to see, no ears to hear. That's how he protected it. Of course, some of this has been changed, but you get the message. How are you going to make it in? Are you going to float out like a butterfly? Or are you going to do the same thing that Christ did? What would Jesus do? Would he say, "Oh, Lord, don't tell me the word. Oh, Lord, no, I can't understand that. Just take me out of here. I don't need to be a symbol to the people of this planet or to my family. That I will not go along with Satan, because I know that I will lose my eternal life, and so will my family. I'm not going out that way. I'm going to stand to the end, not prepared to be floated out. Stand to the end, because he says you're going to be washed in the blood. And you'll be rejoicing when you see all of this coming down onto the planet, and you're not there. And then what happens to the people that are not there, not raptured out, taken by the blood? They took whatever it took. They accepted it. And I didn't say they didn't fight. I'm just saying they didn't lay down, okay? And say, okay, the devil, just take me. It's too scary. I can't handle it. My preacher lied to me and told me I was going to be floating out of here, so let's float. Or you can't do that, because what you're going to read in the rest of this book, you've got one group, the saints and the multitudes, along with the 144,000 of the stars, that are seeing, and John is seeing what's happened to the people that did not do that. You don't want to be in that part, but right now, if you can understand this much, you're in pretty good shape. Then there's going to be the wrath of God coming in here, and then we get into the last few chapters, you're going to start seeing into that 1,000 years of peace with Christ teaching us. Think about that. We're watching it, you watch it, it's a heads up, guys, be safe.